Welcome to the Radical Responsibility Revolution podcast. This is where we are transforming lives, inspiring you to reclaim your health, your wealth, and the power of your mind. Here we share actionable insights, inviting you to turn inwards and design your life of purpose and abundance. Welcome back to another episode of Radical Responsibility Revolution. And today's episode is for every woman who has ever thought, why is my body doing this? I'm doing everything right and I still feel exhausted, stressed, or completely out of alignment. Because what if your body isn't the problem? What if your body is the evidence? Oh, I'm so excited about this conversation. My guest today is Lorrel Elian, creator of the Conscious Body Method and Somatic Face Therapy. You all have to stay and listen to this. It's going to be so much fun. She works at the intersection of emotions, stress, patterns, human design, and even mineral analysis. I'm so excited to understand what your body is actually holding. We're going to go way beyond mindset. We talk about how life experiences literally shape your face, your posture, your health, your hormones, and even the minerals in your body. We're talking about burnout, trauma, midlife wisdom, why women are so tired, and why your body may be telling the truth long before your mind is ready to hear. Lorrel, I am so excited about everything. I don't even know where to start. We had this conversation before we started the podcast, and I said, we better hit the record button because you have this fascinating background. So tell us how you got to be who you are in this moment.
Well, thank you so much, Debbie. And yes, any opportunity to talk to a woman who's been on the journey and dive deeper into it. I ended up here because of frustration, deep, unexplainable pain in my body. And one day I said to my husband, "Is it just me? how how come? How come I always end up here? I'm in pain. I'm in the normal range." And my relationships always ended badly. So I went on a journey. I come from the beauty industry, 20 some years of making other people feel beautiful from behind the chair. The truth of it was I could solve other people's problems, but how come I couldn't solve my own? I was actually quite unhappy for many years of my life inside of that. So I left the beauty industry and went on a journey. I went into real estate because I thought I needed to be able to make a lot of money so I could travel the world and discover all of these beautiful spiritual places I'd been invited to. And after a few years of being there, I lost my memory from the stress. And that turned into looking at new ways to just get healthy. So years later, I looked back at my life and I had been traveling with the teacher, the creator of this great body of work, who's now since passed. But I don't think he realized at the time the magnitude of what he had created, because I had exhausted so many channels in my life that all I could do was throw myself 100% into this new evolution of me. And for my 50th birthday, this was in my mid 40s or early 40s. And by the time I was 50, I celebrated my 50th birthday in Bali, taking my first yoga teacher training. And at the same time, I was completing my teacher's certification in psychosomatic therapy. Psycho, the mind, soma, the body. So basically, it trained me to read faces, read bodies. I can read your ears, your face, your hands, your feet, your full body. I don't need to know your story, because basically you look like how you feel about what's happened to you. And I would, as a teacher of that, I was taking people into a 10-day live-in retreat to teach them how they'd come to that stage in their life, or why their body looked the way it was. It's all about patterns. So over a decade of this, every time I look at someone else, I'm doing that for me. So it's a reminder of me. And then to the years of when 2020 came around and everybody went into isolation, I thought, well, geez, this is going to be easy because I've been living in the retreat center for all these years. Now I'm going to watch how the world manages with that. And at that time in our own life, we sold that location, the retreat center, and moved to a new location, and life did change. And because of this deep way of looking at the world, I was able to, I was seeing these hints that things were changing in my life, and I knew I needed to look in new directions. People often thought I was psychic. I actually thought I was psychic, but actually, here's what I've learned is that we all have access, but how we limit our own access is based on the choices we're making and how we feel our environment. So the access becomes more clear and easier the more clean you are in your life. And so becoming as clean as I had become, life becomes actually can be more interesting, more challenging, because you become more sensitive to what's going on around you. I'm not easy to live with. Try living with a face and body reader. Ask my husband. I am a lot of work, but actually everyone is a lot of work. It's what we open ourselves up to. So my husband actually has done this work alongside of me all of these years. And when he's not in his own career, he's my assistant. And so put that into perspective of a marriage. I said, I had a 20-year honeymoon in my marriage because he always worked away from home. And so when he no longer worked away from home, it was like, wow, it's a good thing we have these tools. And so inside of all of this, it's just taken me deeper and deeper into understanding the relationship we have with the outside world. I have been in training in deep study with human design for the last several years. And that also took me into when I am experiencing challenges with my body. Each decade brings new adventures. And what my doctor had suggested, I didn't agree with. And so in there, I found hair tissue mineral analysis. So truly, what we're experiencing in the outside world, how we process our life, our minerals in our body respond to our emotions. And so that shows up. And that's what I learned in my first, when I received my lab reports. It was what I had suspected. This is a picture. I'm being very vulnerable here. This is a picture of what my body is telling me at a cellular level. And it's not that I'm high in this or low in this. It is all about the relationship to each other, all the minerals, how they respond, how heavy metals come in, how they interact in our body. And so it took me to a new level of understanding. So that psychic part of me, I'm not psychic. I'm just really in tune. So what I could read in outside people, I now could give them a report. And 100% of the people that I work with understand exactly what I'm saying at a deep level, even if they don't admit it, because it's a lot of information. And so, yeah, I'm all about the patterns. Really, that's what I'm trained in. Technically, I'm trained in patterns, but what I see visually is about the patterns. So when I'm around other people, I'm understanding the patterns that I see and how they got there.
There's so much to unpack there. First of all, the word that you said was clean. I want people to hear that there is a way that we lift our own vibration in the world, not just through meditation, affirmations, journaling. Talk about what you meant by clean.
Yeah, there's a lot of complexities inside of that because our world is complex. So I'll preface that with my family history. My first child was born with food allergies. I call it today, she's 36 today, the gift that keeps giving. Because our food is very challenging. Our food is connected to our lineage, our heritage, our family gatherings, what's familiar, which is patterns, right? I used to think that people looked the way they did based on maybe the conditions of the country that they come from, but also that's very deeply connected to their food. So my daughter was allergic to anything that was processed. And that was right at the beginning of the time of the diagnosis with ADD, ADHD, and so on. So our of course, there was that, well, she's got to go on medication. And I rejected that because she's
Hmm.
my first daughter, my baby. And I'm hearing all of these things. And I knew there was something special about her and different about her, but I'm not ready to medicate that part of her. So our approach was through the food. We became certified organic or farmers on our land, and
Wow.
not just one child went into this special eating program. The whole family became integrated into that. And so that in itself was very huge and is still part of how we live our world in our world today, because those chemical processes, which we create
Hmm.
processes in our body and in our mind, the gut brain barrier, they can introducing chemicals, which people often today don't even realize that they're eating more chemical than they
Right.
are actual food. It
Right.
numbs us out and dumbs us down in many
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
So there was no chemical ingredients in our house. Like today, I purchase more vinegar and essential oils than I do. There's no chemicals in our house per se. So
Wow.
being clean in the food, she ended up with rules. We made rules for her because all of that testing was so bizarre and
Hmm.
painful and restrictive. So anything blue, green, orange, red, pink, there might be colors, purple that I'm forgetting, don't eat or drink. But then also to look at the labels on what you're eating or drinking or what you're buying in the store. And when we'd go grocery shopping, the kids would say, "Can I have this?" I said, "You can have anything down that aisle that doesn't have this or this in it." And they'd all, "Oh, we don't get anything." But I was raising label readers, and today I have grandchildren who
Wow.
are label readers or the product
Wow.
of label reading, and they are different. My children, people would often say, "Your kids are so different," and they couldn't quite put their finger on it, but it
Hmm.
was because of their, I don't know, just living with me byproduct conversations. We limited the electronics. We put in their hands musical instruments, the violin.
Wow.
So we are very tactile in our world. But if we
Hmm.
realize, so I'll just give you an idea of body reading. Everything is connected in the body. The tips of your fingers are actually connected to the meridians that are connected to your mind. So if you're constantly stimulating that, but consciously stimulating that. So even when I teach yoga, when we're in shavasana, the last
Yeah.
posture, it's like have your relax your arms, palms facing up, so that they're not laying with their hands down
Right.
thinking about what's going on next.
Right.
It's like these everything that we do, how we are in our body has to do with how we are out there. Being conscious in our body, conscious in the food that we eat, how we're eating it, no electronics, no loud noises, so on. It's how we create the frequency that is around us because we
Hmm.
are we're electrically wired.
Electromagnetic. Hmm. We're
Exactly.
electromagnetic beings.
Right?
Yeah.
So the food
Yeah.
that we eat carries a frequency. So that's all part of it comes back to what we're putting in our body. Yeah, so the more you remove those frequencies that don't align with our nature, the more we become who we're meant to be.
You must have a hard time walking around public places reading people
Oh boy.
because there's only a few aisles you can shop that are clean. You walk in and they're bombarding you with sugar and salt and fat and all of this, and we've all been designed at this point through the propaganda and programming that that's what we want, even though we may even consciously know that it's not what our bodies want. But that vibration layer on, people are putting themselves in these high stress environments, driving in traffic or working in environments that they hate or being around people that they can't. It seems like it just compounds and compounds and compounds. We have to begin with our own body, is what I'm hearing first, before I can go out into the magnetism of all the rest of the world, because it's a little bit challenging sometimes.
Well, You're exactly right. And if I can share with you and your audience and those that are watching that I've been doing this for over 30 years. And the gift was for me that I married my husband and I have been married for 30 years this year. When we met, I was a single mom with two little girls, and I lived in the city. And life was very chaotic. I was
Mhm.
the main breadwinner. I wore so many hats. I owned a business. I went to school. I did all of these things. And my girlfriends would say, "How do you do it all?" And honestly, I didn't know what they were talking about because I
Mhm.
was so in it and I was just doing it. And that's where people are. So then I
Yeah.
marry this man who moves me out to the country. And we started raising the girls on the family farm, far away from everything. And it was about a year into that marriage, I woke up one morning and I felt like, oh my gosh, I think this is the first time, I can't remember when I ever woke up and felt like I had rested, like I woke up rested. And that was the first clue. And then we became certified organic, and I was growing medicinal herb crops. I went into this whole other world, you know, finding the balance in that. And at one point, driving, life changed over the years. I was driving into the city one morning with my girls, and they said, "Mom, how come the people in the city are so crazy?" I said, what a blessing it is for you. You don't realize the gift that you have right now, recognizing that difference. I said, because the people in the city don't know that they're plunged into that busyness. So my husband was a house builder at that time, and he said, people weren't meant to live that close together. And
Yeah.
it's true. And what you described
Mhm.
too is people not knowing the difference. But
Mhm.
the body this is the only thing that we have control over. And if we're constantly believing what the outside world is telling us, we're constantly buying into that which is outside of ourselves. See, it takes a lot to remain sovereign in your body.
Yes.
And it's
Mhm.
the result of choices, because over
Mhm.
the years I see people struggle with this. They'll say, "Oh, it's easy for you." And it's like, absolutely not, because I know the difference.
Right.
So but it's the result of choices, because I was full blown by the time the kids were grown. I was back in the city and I was living that crazy lifestyle again. And I went through all of these cycles. So now I'm back. By the time I was 40, the body was so wrecked. I sold the salon, I went into real estate, and then I found this pattern. So we're all going through these patterns all the time. But it's about looking at the patterns, those cycles. Where do you keep up
Mhm.
ending? And
Mhm.
so, every time I got sicker, I got more sick, I had more symptoms, I had all of these things going on, and I had to find my own solutions. And that's where I come to. So at 50, finding a new path was not optimum. When I was leaving real estate, fellows would say, "I don't get it. You're successful. You're always top earner. You're this, that, whatever. If I had to leave real estate, I'd die." And
Mhm.
I said to the one fellow, "If I stay, I am going to die." I was diagnosed at one point with, I don't give the word energy. And so the big C. And I came back through all of that after having another surgery. I've had many surgeries in those 20 years when I was trying to figure out who I was, between 20 to 40, almost 20 surgeries. And that in itself says a lot. Today, I
Yeah.
have a different understanding about that journey. And everything that we go through in life is a signal to pay attention. The body actually, our body hasn't failed us. Our body is the result of adjusting to our life and these conditions that we put onto it.
Yeah.
That
I
makes
heard a
sense.
quote that says, "Whatever you are willing to put up with, you will never change." the example of you putting up with the things that you put up with until you moved to the farm and you knew better. I had an experience similar to that when I moved from California the first time to this little tiny town in North Texas. And I had been driving hours and hours and hours a day on the freeway. I always described it as a frog being boiled. You know how you put them in the cold water and then you turn it up and they don't realize that you're boiling them to death. And I think that's where we get. And I love that your husband said that we were never meant to live this close. It feels like the more compact the urban areas have the higher levels of disconnect and stress and then anger and then violence. And it's all about
Mhm.
this energy. You got out into the country and in a country area. So we do have this beautiful benefit of that. How can we bring that energy to women that are in these high stress environments that aren't quite willing to let it go at this point?
Yeah. All of the answers are in our body. We and because the where I live to get to things, everything's about driving or being online. So I still find myself in this pattern of a lot of sitting, and our
Yeah.
society really can be a lot of that. And I live in a cold climate. We just it's March, just about the end of March, and we just got more snow.
Oh
And
my God.
I'm in sweaters, and I don't like to go outside because my previous
Yeah.
world, my like we signed up with coaches in California and Florida so that we could
Hmm.
be there. So I stay
Yeah.
inside. But the thing is that it's through our body and the movement of our body. The energy that is you up here can get cut off and locked in here just by this action of being in our computer. And then
Hmm.
being aligned. So, a big part of the work I do has been about putting women back in their bodies, recognizing that we become desensitized, we become disconnected, and movement is key. I teach
Hmm.
yoga. We built a yoga studio, a hot yoga studio into my home so that I could teach it in person instead of the travel restriction thing didn't any longer deter me. So I teach yoga so that I do yoga. We find ways to be that, to do that, but everything comes back to how the body is communicating that to us. So move your body daily. Most of my teachers are women older than me. Two of my yoga teacher and my movement teacher are women in their 70s that are their physicality is their freedom. That's what they've shown me.
Yeah.
So if we stop using it, that's how we lose it.
Yeah.
And so there's no excuse today to not be experiencing movement because there's so much even free online. If you don't have a coach,
Yeah.
go find something on YouTube.
Hmm.
And that's how I stay connected. When things aren't
Yeah.
going right in my business, my relationships, it's like
Hmm.
what it always comes back to, okay, so what's going on here? When I
Yeah.
teach yoga, I say to them, we're not working on the body today. It's always about the brain. Because
Hmm.
and I'll have my students turn away from I don't have mirrors in my studio for a
Hmm.
reason. It's because don't look outside of yourself. I have them turn
Right.
away from me when I'm teaching so that they have to listen to themselves. How are you moving this? Because you're
Hmm.
not just lifting up your hand. I say it's not about
Right.
lifting your hand up, it's about the movement through here because
Hmm.
everything matters. Yeah.
I love that because I was licensed teacher for S Factor, which is a feminine movement slash pole dancing teaching. And it really was, as women, we are not feeling our bodies because we've been taught to be closed down, cross our legs, be sweet, be demure. And when you begin to open up and feel your body open and then just feel the flow of who we are, it's a very freeing movement. So I love hearing that because I've been in yoga classes where it was very rote and felt a little too masculine to me. I
Well,
love I love yoga,
most
don't get me
yoga,
wrong, but
yeah, most yoga out there has become the workout, and it stops
exactly.
that.
Yeah.
My teacher, I didn't realize it at the time, but the universe is always guiding us. It took me to a
Hmm.
teacher, a woman from Israel who grew up in the tradition of yoga. She had her
Wow.
first master. She moved in with her first master when she was 17, and she comes from a family of of medical professionals, so she literally was the black sheep of her family. And she often,
Wow.
talked about that. But she learned yoga from a woman's perspective. A lot of the yoga out there comes from the Yoga Olympics. And there's actually
Yeah.
Yoga Olympics, which was designed to keep the street boys occupied because they were getting into trouble. So,
Yeah.
come to North American women and ask us without being warmed up to, go into headstand or all of these,
Wow.
my
Yeah.
gals, it's like, I talk about this all the time. It's like, how do you move your ankles? Do you realize that they were designed to move like levers, not just be there,
Yeah.
just your feet? Because what's going on up
Mhm.
here comes from down there. So we
Mhm.
open up the joints, we open up the body before we go into postures, movements, and
Mhm.
everything. How each of those parts of you feels tells a story about what's been going on with you. So I read their bodies to them while we're doing yoga, and so it opens up, like, this side of your body means this, your knee on this side means this, and what are you feeling, so that they're relating this to this.
Mhm.
um when I was delivering my first daughter, I couldn't deliver her for whatever it was what was going on in my childhood, the
Mhm.
story I was carrying. So I wasn't able to deliver. And the nurses, they said, as I was rolled into surgery because they were doing C-section, she says, out of kindness, she says, just disconnect from here. We'll take care of everything down here. You just worry
Yeah.
about what's going on up here. And when
Mhm.
I was going through all of my healing, I realized that I had been disconnected from my body for all of those decades. So putting it back
Mhm.
together wasn't just a mind process. I
Right.
had to get back into my body. So that was why that's why I'm so passionate about yoga today. It's a great
Mhm.
tool for women to connect. I'm also a Yamana body rolling teacher, which taught me how to use the breath and my body's weight and own natural traction to literally roll the stress out of my body. So, and it's a great tool for
Through
teaching
breath?
people.
Through
Breath,
breath.
breath.
Wow.
And because yoga teaches it the opposite of how I do it through Yamana body rolling, because it's about
Mhm.
expansion and space, creating that space. So it's just it's one more tool, but ultimately the body has the ability to do it on its own. But we
Mhm.
need all of these training wheels,
Mhm.
tools to deliver that body's ability to create space. When we experience pain in the body, it comes from some form of trauma, stress, surgery, broken bones,
Mhm.
whatever, where the fascial tissue connects to bone or attaches to bone and so on. And it becomes compacted, lacking in space. And that's where yoga, the breath, creates expansion. So when I use the Yamana body rolling system, it's about creating that expansion. And some of my students call me the teacher with balls. I give other women their balls, and it's true. We use the balls as a
So
system, as a
there is a
tool.
ball for the
There's
rolling
actual
part.
balls,
Because I was thinking just roll arm.
an actual system of balls that
Yeah, yeah,
with
yeah, yeah. Okay,
different
that makes more
densities
sense.
and
Yeah.
different sizes too. And it teaches us about how to the origin of our muscles. It's the deep connection to the body. And typically, when I first started with hot yoga, I tried yoga for 20 years, could never stand the way it felt in my body. But
Mhm.
my first hot yoga class was different. So I took the challenge and I never looked back. But I needed the heat, and I was always embarrassed by how much my body sweated. That was part of the imbalance that was happening.
Yeah.
And nobody ever
Yeah.
explained that to me. Most people don't understand it. And when
Wow.
I would feel embarrassed by it. But when I was in the hot studio, of course, everybody's sweating. You're getting hit
Yeah.
with other people's sweat, and it
Yeah.
became this marvelous place to release it. And so I did years of that. And then when I got to the body rolling, it was like the body was releasing a mix of heat and cool for the first time. So I started understanding how this was different forms of release that were happening. So it was basically the psychosomatic therapy was showing me how to release trauma. And then all the different ways that I was learning to read bodies over time taught me how to understand what it was that I was, the trauma that I was releasing or other people were releasing. Yeah.
Yeah. I love the idea that the rolling is, maybe I'm paraphrasing and making my own assumption, that it's loosening up the fascia. Because as the older we get, I always liken fascia to rubber bands. And if you've ever seen a rubber band that's been sitting out in the elements for a long time, it's now just hard
Yeah.
plastic.
Yeah.
And it's no wonder that as we age, this whole notion of, like, my mom's 89, she's the most sedentary person I think I know, and she's frail, and I think she's going to break a lot of times, and it's because there's no movement, there's no ability for that fascia to be in ease. That's just beautiful, this rolling, because it sounds magical.
Right. Well, and as long as we are moving, like so you mentioned the bands and the fascial tissue, but there's also this connective tissue that we're actually a series of pouches. If we think of a chicken breast, and you know that clear membrane that's around it,
Yeah,
we have that too. But it's not like we're just one pouch here, one pouch here. It
right.
is all connected. That's why when we
Hmm.
do an injury here, but then we feel it over
Yep.
here. So we have to
Hmm.
move all parts of it. And when I had experienced a dislocation in my shoulder, that the pain didn't show up for a few days, and then over the next 4 years I went through this, well, how do I fix this because it's getting worse? And they could possibly do surgery, but there was no guarantees. They couldn't they couldn't give me any promises. Physio, chiro, massage, nothing really worked on it until I got into a system of moving the body. And it was,
Hmm.
through a movement teacher. So it was, and and then through that process, I learned what so many of my students were talking about, with men and women of all ages that had frozen shoulder. And I needed to learn to move my body to release it. And it was one day I was with my massage therapist, and she'd been working on this particular thing for over a year. And it wasn't what she could do for me, it was what we did together. And it's
Hmm.
further proof that you can't just go and have a treatment done. You have to be
Right.
doing stuff all along. So this
Hmm.
one particular day, she moved my arm in this way, and then she did something, and this most unpleasant sound. She says she was so afraid she had damaged me, but I could feel that the something in the joint slipped back into place, but it was bone
Oh,
grinding on bone. And
wow.
after that, it was pure freedom. But every now and then when the shoulder would burn, like there was this sensation of burning that would keep me awake for years. But when that
Hmm.
sensation comes back, it reminds me I'm not moving enough in that area.
Hmm.
I need to keep moving
Hmm.
more. But I understand how people get so damaged. And we're conditioned to go to this one, go to that one, go to that one. Well, over the years of being a psychosomatic therapist, as a face and body reader, I stopped going because it's like,
Hmm.
you got your own stuff. How are you going to help me? We have to help us. And my message
Right.
to women is nobody's coming to save us. We have
Yep.
to learn to do it for us first. And then
Hmm.
it helps. I've appreciated my doctor over the years. She understands how I work. um, I have to understand how this body of work works. We often invest more under the hood of our vehicles that we drive than this vehicle that carries us through life. Invest here, invest the time, first of all, but also be willing to invest the money to learn deeper. Because I sure wouldn't have ended up here if I'd had followed that outside advice. Because what I
Yeah.
discovered was I was doing this to do this to do this, And until I looked at this, and we can't do it on our own. We need to have those eyes outside of our body or that can look in. I always think about that fish that's swimming around looking and asking all the other fish for that life-giving force, because when we're swimming in it, we can't see
Mm-hmm.
it. And we're often blocked to that because we think, because we are really smart, but we
Yeah.
can, this monkey mind can trick us into thinking we have all the answers. And no, 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 I'm not going to go that way. So it,
Well, and yeah, we're getting imprinted with that type of information every day. So I have to say, we come by it honestly. I was talking to somebody the other day about a doctor, speaking of those outside forces, and she was sharing a story about she was walking and she was probably 60 or something, and she was walking every day and her feet were hurting her. So she goes to the doctor, and this doctor, because we were talking about how they treat elderly women, and he said, "Oh, are there any benches on your path so you can sit down?" And I'm like, could we look at the root problem instead of you're just old? And that's another conversation. Since I talked to a lot of women that listen to this podcast are in midlife. So I want you to share, number one, that wherever they are, like if somebody came to you for face reading, body reading, the mineral assessment, and you say, okay, this is where you are today. This is what's created that for you, these emotions, etc. Now, can they do something? That's really what everybody wants to know. Because my mother said, I think she was 68 or so, and said to me at one point, I just accept that this is how you're supposed to feel at this age. And I said, no, no, that's not accurate. However, that's what a lot of people, especially women, believe, that once we get to a certain point, it's downhill and there is no going back. So talk about that.
yes. Oh boy. You're right. I think I heard the age discrimination when I was 35 for the first time.
Wow.
I was shocked. I was shocked how at your age, can't you just accept? Yeah, and we hear a lot of things like that through our life. But yeah, I actually felt quite so I'm a child, a child of the 60s, married to a man from the 50s. And when I was a single mom, and 30, and my mom's looking for a husband for me. And I was just like, because many of us come from that time of hopefully you find someone to marry that will take care of you, because what's your purpose? And I ended up in that place where, geez, yeah, who am I? Because women, we are so discounted, we're so marketed to, we're so conditioned to, be a good wife, be a good daughter, be good at all these things. And we mostly are. And
Yeah.
that's how we give so much of it away. And I am very much of the mind that life life begins after we've come through all of that conditioning that we have. And like I say, at 50, I was at my first yoga teacher training. That's how I celebrated. I was actually there on my birthday, and that's how I celebrated 51. It was for the first time in my life, I felt like I had arrived at a place where I knew who I was and what I was doing. And in those years, I shed so many pounds. I was 240 pounds in my first hot yoga class. And that was the piling up of the accumulation of all of the agitation of my life, the weight that I carried in life. And as in those years, I created Somatic Face Therapy because it was, yeah, how come I have the pictures to prove how I look so different. And it wasn't that I intended for that to happen. It was the shedding of the accumulation, because how you look
Mm.
here is how you fleshed out based on how you feel about what's happened to you. So we have to be willing to look at life differently, but also to be differently in how we do our life. So it shifting the patterns gets easier, but we often think we have to give stuff up. and
Mm.
and and then when we have that moment where it's like where that new pattern is starting to, we're embodying that new pattern and we get that feeling of how it feels, then we start realizing how freeing it is. It comes through our words, the things that we speak, because that is a big part of how we manifest. But if you're always telling yourself, I'm old, I'm this, I have this, claiming your diseases, it's about being in an environment that doesn't support that. So often it's raising that frequency is what happens when we stop talking about those really crappy things that we are being told we have to be. We don't have to accept that. So find new environments to be around, and maybe it's not necessarily about the friends, because as we raise our own frequency, those old patterns, which are people, go away. And often it's the family, what's familiar, that gives us our greatest challenge, because they want us to be like them, or we think we have to be like them. And one of the bodies of work that have come to me through all of these years of having a front seat to other women's stories is this a disruptive or challenging relationship with their mother. And so this is a book that I've been working on. And actually, I'm on the third time of rewriting it because of what I'm seeing come to be. Because that relationship with our mother really does mold us. And we come from that. But when we do the work on us, we heal 7 generations back and 8 forward. And as a mother and a grandmother, I've lived long enough to see how these patterns, this healing on us, works in those other generations. I am not my mother. I remember my teacher, I said to him, I have my grandmother's legs. And he says, you have your legs. And I understand that now. So it's about claiming our life for ourselves. My children knew before they had children that I wasn't the sit on the porch in the rocking chair grandma. They call me Glamma. And I love that. They came up with that on their own.
Exactly.
Because they saw me online. One of them saw me online, or saw someone online that looked like me, and how glamorous her grandma is. What a compliment. But it's being the best version of ourselves and constantly working on self, not to prove anything to the world, but that is our purpose. To cinch it into this, our purpose is to constantly be working on the best version of ourselves every moment, every hour of every day. And my children, they they've come back to say, geez, Mom, I recognize that the work you've done on you, how it's served me. And I thought, ooh, I've done my job. But then it evolved into, oh, but you still have your work to do on you for your children. So it's about not being attached to those things that we think we're supposed to be. Sometimes it can feel lonely, but in that loneliness, there's a depth to our learning that comes too. So stop being so hard on yourself and just allow, be the constant student, be willing.
Yeah. I love that so much because I talk about generational everything, trauma, experiences. When you said that it heals the 7 generations before, yes, I get that. But then you said it does the generations forward. And I went, oh, wow, I don't know why I didn't think of it like that, because that truly is each and every one of us is making an impact. That's one of my favorite words these days. There's so many words that are bantered around in the zeitgeist that are authentic and whatever. I want to leave an impact. I don't want to leave a legacy necessarily. Oh, that will happen, I suppose, but an impact. And it doesn't have to be global, it could be. But if we make impact every single day in our lives, I believe that will fuel us to be reminding ourselves to be that better version of ourselves. And as you're sharing that story, I just keep thinking of my own mom, and she's in the senior center right now. And
they're all in these wheelchairs shuffling around. And I think, how sad is that? I choose never, and that's going to make me cry. I choose never to be in that body. Like, this is so important because this takes us in this vehicle through our lives until we're ready to lay down, put our head on the pillow, close our eyes, and go to another dimension. It isn't about getting old. And I think we've programmed our society as well that being old is just go and lay down. And if you get sick or you get Alzheimer's or you can't move, so sad, too bad. And I can't really wrap my head around that anymore.
Yeah. Well, there's big business in you buying into the disease
Yeah,
industry,
that's true.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
When I had, so I was awake through the diagnosis that I received. I went for the biopsy. I was awake through the biopsy, and they confirmed what they were seeing,
Right.
And then I'm fortunate at that time that I had herbalist alternative friends around me. And here's a good example. When I took it to my one friend, and it's like, oh, here's a diagnosis, and they got to do surgery and this and that, whatever. And she said, oh, that's easy. That's easy.
Um,
Cancer is easier than arthritis to cure. And
yeah,
I was like, I wanted her to feel sorry for me because that's the model
yeah,
I was
yeah.
used to. And so she checked my attitude. It was my attitude. And then
Hmm.
it turned into pro empowerment. And then when I had the surgery done, and then I didn't hear anything from the doctor. I'm recovering. So at 2 weeks, I phoned the surgeon's office. He was too busy to talk to me. And actually, how I interpreted, I was no longer a good customer because when they went in,
Hmm.
the thing that they went for was not there. And the nurse told me, she says, well, I'll give you results. She says, sometimes these things just go away. They can't explain it, but it was just gone. I was already laughing. So my family, who have all the diseases, they still to this day do not believe that I had anything. It was an attention getting gimmick that
Right.
I put on this thing. And I get it. I also haven't had a speaking relationship with them over 30 years. It's the children that keep the connection. But
Yeah.
so that's been the hardest part of my journey was, how do I give up the family? But actually, the healthier I got, the more they couldn't stand me. And it's
Yeah.
still like that
Yeah.
today. I have
Yeah.
outlived my sisters, two of my
Hmm.
sisters. And,
Hmm.
like I say, I no longer look like them. I don't talk about the things that they talk about. It's really difficult to be around me because I'm this frequency. And in order for us to be there,
Yeah.
they either have to come up or we have to come down. So
Yeah.
we're just talking frequency. So you raise
Yeah.
your frequency, your vibration. You don't
Yeah.
have to tell anybody to get out of your space. There's no such thing as
Hmm.
energy vampires or suckers. We
Yeah.
give our energy away.
Hmm.
So when
Yeah.
we just maintain who we are, which is all you have to do is look at, what are my non-negotiables? For me,
Yeah.
it's no fragrances, no processed food. That
Hmm.
covers a lot of things.
Yeah.
It is difficult to go into a grocery store. I very rarely
Yeah.
go. We shop more
Yeah.
local.
Yeah.
We purchase land to grow our own food. Like,
Hmm.
it's like those were decisions we made. We
Hmm.
don't go to the city very often. I remember I finished my master's training in psychosomatic therapy. So I spent 10 days in a retreat learning deeper level face and body reading. And I jumped in my car afterwards and went to Costco. And it was like, oh, I get my cart and I'm going in. And it's like, I couldn't go in because all of these bodies, all of this data was coming
Yeah.
at me. And I
Right.
could no longer, because I'm up here and all these big chunks of
Right.
information.
Right.
When I go into
Right.
a store, I have my cart and it
Yeah.
keeps me at a distance. I don't go down the aisles where it smells. You know,
Hmm.
all of these
Hmm.
things. There's
Yeah.
observation and strategy, and that's
Yeah.
where human design really helped me, because this unique way that I am used to be the thing that was my biggest sorrow, because we are snowflakes. We are uniquely designed.
Mhm.
What's happening in your life that causes you sadness? There's messages in that. You're a big puzzle, and it's like, if you get all of these other strategies, these ways to understand who you're meant to be, how to manage your energy, life gets easier and so much more interesting. I
Yeah.
read all of my charts on all of my people. When I work with clients, before I even talk to them, I understand their birth numbers or their human design, whichever information comes in. So I understand where our challenges will be, or if we're even meant to work together. Because I am the way I am, I'm not for everybody. Not all of us. We have people that are for us,
That's
and
right.
most people in our lives, if we're not tuned into it, are not for us. It's
Yeah.
part of that outside conditioning.
Yeah, it's so funny because I've taught marketing for so long that people in general, especially when they get in business, so who's your ideal client? Everybody. I'm like, no, they're not. First of all, besides that, it dilutes it. But I think that the most important and empowering thing that somebody can do is say, I'm not for everybody. I'm just me. If I'm in that frequency of myself, my soul energy, then I'm going to attract, because it's just that magnetism, that frequency attraction to itself, then they come. And the other ones just melt away. It's okay. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So I know, I can't believe it's, oh my gosh, we've been on talking for a while. Okay. So I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about human design a little bit more, and I also want to talk about the mineral analysis, because that to me, I'm being selfish with that one. I love this whole concept, and I want you to do a little bit of a deep dive about what that is. You showed this beautiful graph. I don't know what it is, but what is it? What is that information going to give somebody that works with you?
Yeah. Well, so when you have a blood or urine test done, depending on what they're looking for, the minerals which are essential for our life, minerals are the spark plug of the cell. So it and when you have a blood or urine test done, though they're being filtered, blood's filtered through the heart, urine's filtered through the kidneys. So you're not necessarily getting a true picture, or you're getting a 24 to 48-hour picture of what's going on. When hair tissue mineral analysis takes samples from areas of the scalp, right close to the scalp, and you get anywhere up to 3-4 months of a history of the patterns in your body. So what I showed you, this is actually
Mhm.
just one of the pages. So this
Right.
is the report, and basically it is the way that I'm trained to understand the analysis. It's not like you're high in this, you're low in this.
Right, right.
It's the relationship between all of
Wow.
these. So what I learned and what I was suspicious of is that the body looks the way it does based on how we feel about what's happened to us. So our
Right.
minerals are responding to our emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Calcium, this is a good example. Calcium is known as the women's mineral. Why is that?
Right.
When we think of calcium, what women are prescribed calcium, it's in
Right.
response to, oh, you have arthritis or this and that. But actually, what's going on is calcium responds to our emotions. And when the body has been under prolonged stress or trauma, it responds in a parasympathetic dominance mode. So you're likely in fight, flight, freeze, fawn, one of the responses. And then the body is not allowing the nutrients, the calcium to come in naturally. So then it start drawing off of the bones and the teeth. And then the doctor starts seeing, oh, maybe you're depleted in calcium. Oh, you're getting
Right.
shorter, or all of these things. So you should take calcium. But actually, you put that calcium in, and you know what a calcium pill looks like.
Yeah,
Imagine that
exactly.
like shards of glass going into the
Mhm.
body, because the body's saying, no, I'm protecting her, so you can go anywhere else. So that
Mhm.
calcium deposits in joints, in tissue. And then soon after, and I know this to be true because I talk to all of the women that I have a chance to talk to that aren't already in my programs. And it confirms for me, yes, that's the path I went on. And then I had
Mhm.
osteoarthritis and this and that. That was my mother. At the age of 35, she was told she had the knees of a 65-year-old woman. How does that happen? Like, I had all of this information for so long in my mind. It's like, explain this to me. So in the training that I have, it's I'm one of the first with not a medical background in a training that's designed for functional medicine, functional fitness, functional nutritionalists, and that. So we look at this relationship between the minerals. So that calcium, magnesium, and potassium and sodium, those are what we consider the top four. So we look at how they're interacting. So when someone has their samples sent away to a very specific lab that I work with that only deals with minerals and deals with the hair in a very specific way, because other labs do different things, I'll just say. So it's a
Mhm.
very specific training, although many people have access to mineral labs. And one of the stories I hear is, oh, I went and I gave my sample, and then I left with X amount of, hundreds of dollars in supplements
Supplements.
before the tests even come back. That to me is like, that's a red flag. So
That's
we
a
look at
marketing play.
what's
Yep.
going on.
Mhm.
Often, 100% of my clients are taking way too much stuff because that bio
Yep.
unavailable
Yep.
factor
Yep.
rejects stuff. And
Yep.
even if you're taking tons of magnesium, which the body requires for over 300 daily functions, if it's not accepting it, you're still experiencing the symptoms, but the results will show that it's very high and it's wrong.
Mhm.
So we have to get the body to a place of feeling safe. So everyone is a snowflake. I take a 300 question survey from the start. I've created an app that puts all of my information on my specific clients into this database, so it responds with a report, actually several reports. And I meet my clients where they're at. They've been taking this medication, these supplements. What's your lifestyle like? What goes on? How are your BMs? Like, how many times do you urinate? Do you sleep through the night? What food? Where does your stress come from?
Mhm.
All of that. So I start compiling a report before I talk to them after their results come back. So when their results come back, I spend time with them on the first call. I will never offer just, here's your resort. Here's your samples. This is what it looks like, because it's just too valuable of information, and it's a process that people go through. It's like human design. You recognize your conditioning, and this too, it's like we have to decondition. We have to get back to the basics. Most people are dealing with um, gut issues, with
Mhm.
absorption issues that come from the guts. So we start with very basic, and then it's an experiment. So I develop a protocol, and then we look at this, try this for 30 days, then we get on another call. And I'm really pleased with how the more simplification we put into the individual programs, the more and faster they're seeing results.
I can imagine though you're blending that human design with what you see with the results. You've read their body so you can understand their history, and then put it in conjunction with how they show up in the world with the human design. This is why. you were not in your positive state of human design, but let's put you in that state and then move forward and create a pathway towards this healing.
Yes. So I found human design a few years before I did the hair tissue mineral analysis. And so I could, because when we're body reading, through body reading, it's like organs are connected to issues which are connected to chakra systems, energy centers, which are connected to organs and issues in our life. So that goes outwards. And then when I looked at that human design, I saw the psychosomatic aspect of all of that. There's very unique differences, and it got much more specific. And really so much of it is about accountability to self. And everything that I do, because of how I've learned it, it all comes back to me being honest with myself. And yeah, like on the yoga mat, this is me. I always say to my ladies, what goes on your mat is your business. It's like, that's your country. What's going on in the other countries, it's none of your business. So to be here and to be honest, because your human design, it just brings such a specific factor that there is nothing else in the world that is very specific. If you just learned that part of it, that will take you so far. So yeah, so when I read the human design, it collaborates with what's going on here, and those two together, it's a formula for life. And the hair tissue mineral analysis shows how my design is functioning in the world at a cellular level.
Right.
This is me at a cellular level. So
Yeah.
that thing that people used to think I was psychic, it's like, this is you.
Yeah.
So how do
Yeah.
we optimize you?
So much wisdom is floating around out there in the universe, and we are just plodding along like sheeple. I just love this conversation so much. I want you to share, if people want to work with you, all your information that you send to me will be in the show notes, but give us a little preview of what that might look like.
I've been in soft launch, bringing all of these together. It's taken a lifetime to bring it all together. So just being out talking about it has really helped me to refine it. Conscious Body by Design is one of my websites that I'm just in soft launch with. If the minerals interest you, you can find access. There's information there about how that could look. I always offer a free call. So you can get on a free call. And the QR codes, all of that information is Conscious Body by Design. And I also have a free podcast that you can get on and find out about that. I'm just in the process of adding to the website where you can get your chart done. I don't do chart readings because I'm all about you learning it for you. That's where the beauty, the magic in our life really happens when we look at it that way. So I teach you how to understand how you've come to be in the shape you're in, and you have all of these wonderful tools. So there'll be more offerings, but that's certainly how people can reach me right now.
All that will be on the show notes, the contact information and all your socials, etc. And I am just so happy that we came connected. But then again, that's just frequency. So it's not a big surprise when I just have this magic show up all the time. I'm so
Yeah.
blessed
Thank
to
you
have
so
this
much, Debbie,
amazing
for
life.
creating this platform for women to come together and to learn more about their bodies and all that you offer.
Yes.
Thank
It's
you for
all
that.
about the body. Oh my gosh. It's like, it seems like every other podcast that I do with a woman is about the body. And I love it because it really is where we are finally getting to, even though I think it's so fascinating that there is this energetic movement towards AI and social and focusing on these screens and all of that. And yet there is this other energy, which I believe is the feminine energy saying, this is about the body and this is about connection.
If I can add just in closing for myself that my teacher from psychosomatic therapy has been long gone for some time, and he always said this is all about people being in their body, because if they're not in their body, they won't transition these times. He was gone before COVID. And that's when human design came into my life with the explanation of this shift that's happening. I stopped teaching psychosomatic therapy in the 6 months before COVID came, the first isolation came, because I saw this change happening with people. And so now when I look back, it's like that's what it was, because they weren't coming in to learn. And so that time that we've been in has been about the patriarchal society. The matriarchal, we are moving into this time, and we are right in it. All this external stuff that's going in is all about the individual. It's about you learning it for you. And this is the vessel that will carry us through these times.
Yeah.
So thank you again for that.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I can't wait to see if we can do this again, especially when you get your full program together. I'll be wanting to
Yeah.
collaborate. All right. Thanks, Laurel.
Thank you
Hang
so
tight.
much.